Throughout history, when individuals stood at the brink of despair, overwhelmed by the weight of existence, there emerged a silent but powerful force: the courage to be. In a world riddled with anxiety, doubt, and the gnawing fear of non-being, this courage was not merely a psychological strategy, but a spiritual affirmation. Paul Tillich called it the ultimate answer to anxiety, a divine defiance against the void. The call to courage. This is not the courage to achieve, to conquer, or to dominate. This is the courage to simply exist. The courage to remain present in a world that often feels indifferent, even hostile to your very being. It is the kind of courage that does not roar but whispers, sometimes shakily, sometimes firmly. I am still here. This courage is not the absence of fear. It is the triumph of trust over terror. It is the voice that rises within when nothing outside affirms your worth. It is the trembling but steady hand that reaches toward life again, even when life has hurt you. It is the resilience that lives in the soul of someone who has every reason to give up, but doesn't. To be is the most radical act of defiance in a world that constantly tempts you to disappear, to numb yourself, to give in to despair. The courage to be is not flashy. It is quiet. It is stubborn. It is holy. It is the decision to rise each day and continue, not because the path is easy or certain, but because you trust that your being matters. Tillich understood that in the silence of existential anxiety, the voice of courage must answer. When the mind says, "You are nothing," courage says, "I am." When shame whispers, "You are not enough," courage replies, "I do not need to be perfect to have value." When fear screams, "You cannot go on," courage breathes, "But I will." The courage to be is a sacred confrontation with the darkness within and around us. It is not a denial of suffering, but a transformation of it. It is the knowing that anxiety does not have the final word, that death is not the end of meaning, that even when the foundations shake, the ground of being holds you. You have felt it. That moment when everything seemed lost, yet something deep inside refused to surrender. That moment when the pain was unbearable, but your spirit still whispered, "Keep going." That was not weakness. That was courage. That was God's affirmation within you, echoing back the words of eternity. You are. Every generation's struggle. Every generation has faced its own crises. Wars, plagues, injustice, and alienation have shaped the human experience. And in each era, there have been those who were tempted to surrender to despair, to let fear dictate the course of their lives. But within them, sometimes faintly, sometimes defiantly, the courage to affirm their being took root. This courage did not erase fear. It transcended it. Not because the individual was strong enough, but because something deeper, something eternal, affirmed them even as they trembled. Living out a theological truth. You may not have recognized it at first, but in your darkest moments, you were living out a profound theological truth. You weren't just surviving another anxious night or enduring another wave of doubt. You were bearing witness to the mystery of existence. You were embodying what Tillich described as the courage to accept yourself in spite of yourself. The courage to accept that even in your brokenness, you are still worthy, still whole, still being. The nature of anxiety and the voice of being. Anxiety, Tillich said, is the awareness of our possible non-being. It is the dread that our existence may have no ultimate meaning, that our presence is merely a flicker in an indifferent cosmos. But into that dread, the voice of being speaks, not through thunder or spectacle, but through the quiet resilience of a soul that refuses to disappear, that refuses to agree with the nothingness. Divine resistance. In small acts. When you continued to breathe, to work, to hope, even when everything around you seemed to deny your worth. That was courage. That was a divine act. You were not simply enduring. You were affirming. You were resisting the pull of non-being, not with arrogance, but with a deep spiritual humility that says, even though I feel abandoned, I will not abandon myself. A quiet confession of trust. This courage is not rooted in ego. It is not a defiant shout of self-confidence. It is a quiet confession of trust, a trust that beneath all the chaos, there is a ground of being, something, or someone, who knows you, holds you, and affirms your worth. Not because of your accomplishments, not because of your status, but because you exist, because being itself says yes to you. Tillich's message to the broken. You are not alone in this. Tillich wrote for those crushed by the weight of guilt, for those lost in the fog of doubt, for those drowning in despair. He saw anxiety not as a flaw to be fixed, but as a part of being human. He saw the courage to be not as an escape from pain, but as a confrontation with it. To affirm oneself in the face of anxiety is to stand at the edge of the abyss and say, I will not retreat. Your presence is purposeful. Your life is not an accident. Your presence is not without purpose. Even your struggle has meaning. For in your willingness to stand, to continue, to say yes to life, you are aligned with the eternal. You are grounded in something unshakable, even when everything around you shakes. The three great anxieties. Tillich pointed to three types of anxiety that plague the human soul: the anxiety of fate and death, of guilt and condemnation, and of emptiness and meaninglessness. Each one threatens to undo us. Each one whispers that we are nothing. But the courage to be replies, even if I fail, even if I fall, I still am. And that is enough. Sacred moments of courage. In moments of despair, your courage may not have felt grand. It may have looked like getting out of bed, making a phone call, saying a prayer, not giving up. But in the eyes of the eternal, those moments are sacred. They are acts of faith, of hope, of divine resistance against the lie that you are nothing. You were created to be. You have been chosen not to fix the world, not to impress others, not to be perfect, but simply to be, and in being, to become, to grow, to accept yourself even when you are fragmented, even when you fall short of your ideals. That acceptance is not resignation, it is redemption. It is the first step toward healing. The misunderstood courage. Some may never understand the depth of your struggle. They may misread your quiet courage as weakness. They may judge what they cannot see. But their misunderstanding does not define you. You were not created to be understood by everyone. You were created to be. Surrender and grace. This is the divine paradox. The courage to be begins with surrender. Not surrender to anxiety, but to the ground of being itself. It is in surrendering that you find strength, in admitting your fear that you find peace, in embracing your limitations that you discover boundless grace. Living with anxiety, not without it, you do not need to have all the answers. You do not need to silence every fear. The courage to be is not about eliminating anxiety. It is about learning to live with it, to move through it, to affirm your existence even when fear presses against your soul. Becoming fully yourself. And when you choose to do that, day after day, you are participating in something eternal, something divine. You are becoming more fully yourself. And in doing so, you are offering the world a glimpse of what it means to live truly, deeply, courageously. You are grounded in being. You are not defined by your worst day, not diminished by your deepest fear. You are a being grounded in being, a child of the eternal, a voice in the vastness that still echoes with the affirmation, I am. Now is the time for courage. Your courage is sacred. Your existence is meaningful, and your willingness to be, even when it hurts, even when it terrifies you, is the greatest act of faith you will ever make. Now is not the time to shrink. Now is not the time to question your worth. Now is the time to embrace the courage to be, to live as one who knows that being itself says yes to you. And in that yes, you find your strength. You find your peace. You find yourself. You are not here by accident. You were never meant to live small or hidden. The courage to be is already within you. It has sustained you, shaped you, and brought you to this very moment. And now it invites you to step forward, not in perfection, but in presence. So walk forward, rise in truth, live fully, and let your being speak louder than your fear. Thank you for watching. If this message stirred something in you, if it gave you strength or a new way to see your own worth, like, share, and subscribe. There is more to come, and you are meant to be part of it. Until next time, keep going, keep being. You are not alone.